Perfectionism is something that I think, Jiminy Christmas, all of us deal with, myself included. I think whether you're goal-driven, ambitious, entrepreneur, whatever, I think it's something that we all have issues with. This idea, this notion of how things are supposed to be, and our lists and our and our certain ways of trying to achieve all of these said things that are supposed to happen. I think, perfectionism, if not used in a certain way, can absolutely hinder your life experience. In this episode, we speak with Crystal Love. She is the CEO of Perfectaholic, a recovering perfectionist, and a serial entrepreneur. So she's very used to these perfectionism habits that we're going to be discussing. In this episode, we cover what a perfectionist is, how do you know that you are one, the characteristics, how it could be helping you, how it could be hindering you, and mind shift changes to implement in order to start using perfectionism when you need it, and then also how to get rid of it when you don't. So sit tight, take some notes. I really open up about my own perfectionism issues that I'm having currently. So I think this is a great episode for all of us to learn from. Hello, Slay Nation. We are back with another episode of the So She Slays podcast. This time I am with Crystal Love. She is a recovering perfectionist, the CEO of Perfectaholic, and overall serial entrepreneur, which we over here at So She Slays absolutely love. We're all entrepreneurs ourselves. We all got our own things going. So Crystal, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. And, I kind of want to talk a little bit about perfectionism, obviously, because I feel like it's a word that a lot of people just throw out there and maybe aren't exactly sure what that is and why that is a bad thing. But before we dive right into the juicy stuff, just kind of give a little backstory, if you will, about how you even reached this journey of, becoming a recovering perfectionist.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned in introducing me, I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I have started businesses, failed at businesses, started, stopped. And when the pandemic started, I had a dating advice business that I had been working on for years. I had spent so much time, so much money, so much effort into it, but it wasn't making any progress. It just wasn't taking off. And I was having a very, very hard time sort of letting go of that, sort of accepting that I had failed at it. And then the pandemic started and the world stopped. And so
yes,
I stopped.
It did.
The world stopped. I think we were sort of all in shock. And so was I. And so I sort of said, well, I'll just stop, my social media for a week or two, because I'm thinking, we're going to be in this for a week or two. We'll be done and we'll all be back to normal. Obviously, that was not the case.
We know.
Correct. Yeah, we're still in it.
We still in it.
Years later.
We still in it.
Yeah. So during that pause, I sort of took some time, not just away from that business, but from just sort of my life in general. And during that moment, I realized that I was holding on to something that out of a fear of failure, out of a fear of, I had put so much into it, out of a fear of, I thought this was my path, that sort of thing. And a friend of mine dragged me to what I'd like to call a psychic fair. Because I was depressed.
You were out of it. You needed some direction.
I was a hot mess.
Ooh.
And I went to this psychic fair, and it was like one of those where like you sit with someone for 20 minutes and then you move to the next one. And so I had 3 different sessions, and at each session, each psychic tarot reader brought up the same exact card. And it was hard for me to ignore. And that card was the 5 of Cups. And in the 5 of Cups, you've got this person sort of hunched over, looking at these 3 cups that are spilled, right? So this is what is not working, what the regrets, what didn't go right, what you were looking forward to and it didn't happen. And so that's you've got these 3 cups that you're looking at, but behind this person are 2 full cups. And what this was saying to me, because it was repeated 3 times by 3 different people who don't know me, who don't know what the other person was saying, was that I was focused so much on what wasn't happening, what I had lost, what I was regretting, what should happen, that I wasn't focused
Mm.
at all on what was to come or what could be or an alternative. I was just focused on, this is how it has to be. This is how I had it in my head. I was a perfectionist. And through sort of that process of that career, of that tarot fair, and just through pausing my business, I realized A, I needed to let that business go. B, it was okay for me to fail. C, I was a perfectionist. And that perfection was preventing me from moving on with my life, letting things go, accepting a failure, or even though at this point, I don't even think of it as a failure. I just think of it as a stepping stone, think of it as a learning experience. And so, sort of all of that led me to sort of shifting into what I call a recovering perfectionist as opposed to a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And I came up with this sort of saying that I would say to myself, and it's the tagline for our business, and that is perfectionist for basic bees. I don't know if I can say bees.
Yes, you can swear, girl. I swear all the time.
Perfection is for basic bitches. And I say that to myself over and over again when I get in my perfectionism rabbit holes, because I do not consider myself a basic bitch. I never have been one. I never will be one. And it's like, that is the worst for me. It's like, oh, no, 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 no. I don't want to be a basic bitch. And so I say to myself, perfection is for basic bitches. And that sort of helps me snap out of sort of these holes I get into. And it sort of all kind of led into me creating Perfectaholic and creating a movement to sort of help women let go of perfectionism, let go of that need of, looking at those 3 spilled cups and thinking that that's all there is. There's not. And so that's kind of a longer Cliff Notes version of how Perfectaholic came to be, how I became a recovering perfectionist.
Oh my gosh. That's so interesting because I think I feel like life and the universe kind of speak to us in odd ways sometimes.
Mhm.
And like sometimes they'll do anything it can to grab your attention. So it's so funny that you went to like this kind of psychic fair and you had like all of these reads that pretty much were telling you the same thing over and over again. I mean, that's really hard to ignore. You can
And
that is
I
the
think,
universe slapping you upside the face is what's
yes,
happening.
yes. And I still believe this, that the universe, God, whoever you believe in will sort of whisper things to you. And then when you don't listen, it'll sort of tap you on your shoulder. And then when you don't listen, it'll pop you upside the head. And then you don't listen, it'll push you down. So I think that it had been trying to tell me this for a while. I just wasn't listening. I didn't want to accept it,
You didn't
because
see it.
I didn't see it. But I just, even if I saw it, I refused. I refused. That's part of perfectionism, is that you may be presented with an alternative, but you won't accept it because it's not what you had in your head. It's not what you planned. It's not written on your list. So therefore, no, because some parts of perfectionism are control. Like, I wrote this down. This is supposed to happen. This is how I want my life to be. This is how I want, my business, my spouse, my kids, my whole life planned out. This is how I want it to be. No, I'm not going to consider that, because that's not in my plan. And that's part of perfectionism. You're focused on one way, and you won't even consider the alternatives, even if the alternatives could be better, but it doesn't matter, because you're just focused,
you're so
on
fixated.
Yes, you're so fixated on this. It has to be this way. It has to be like this,
Yes.
and then you miss out on so much life. You miss out on so much life, which is the purpose of one of the, really sort of my why, is because I felt like I missed out on a decade of my life waiting on perfection, waiting on this perfect life, this perfect man, this perfect business, this perfect everything. I was just sitting there waiting, like, oh, no, 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 nope, not on my list. Nope, nope, that wasn't exactly how I wanted it to be. So nope, 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 nope. Meanwhile, there's so many other options out there. There was so much more for me. And I wouldn't consider it. I just was like, nope, not going to do it. And it's sad But in hindsight, thank goodness the pandemic happened in the way it did for me. Thank goodness my friend dragged me to this psychic fair, and you don't necessarily have to believe in psychics to believe what they gave to me, which was a message that I could not ignore, like you said, because
Mm-hmm.
it was repeated again and again and again. And I was like, okay,
All right. You're
okay,
like, all right, well, it's in front of my face. How many times do I need to see this?
you're right.
uh,
Exactly.
I mean, as a perfectionist myself, and a recovering one, like I think we were talking a little offline about me going through a transition career wise, a good shift in direction, which I'm excited about. But a lot of change and unknown and uncertainty obviously brings about stress and anxiety, and you're not sure because you're in uncharted territory, and I feel like it's very, very natural to have this anxiety. And I was just talking to you, I was like, I feel like the anxiety is kind of manifesting itself in perfectionism, this need to
Mm,
be, enough. And then when I look at it, I'm like, but is it enough? Well, I'm gonna make it enough. And then
mhm.
you like try and prove to, I don't know, I'm not proving it to anybody, but I apparently am proving it to myself or somebody that like I am enough and this is going to be perfect if I go about it in a certain way. And, you know, I feel like perfectionism is a very, very big word with lots of little things under it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
for our audience, let's kind of narrow down a little bit because perfectionism can be a little bit of a blanket, right? So
Yeah.
let's kind of talk about this a little bit. Like, what is perfectionism? How do I know if I am a perfectionist?
Yeah. So in perfectionism is not black and white. So it's not like if I do A, then I'm a perfectionist. Or if I do this, or if I feel this way, then I'm a perfectionist. I think that there are degrees of perfectionism. Let's just use a scale of 1 to 10, as an example. You can be a perfectionist level 1, or you can be a perfectionist level 10. And then there are some people say, well, if you're just really particular, if you like things a certain way, or if you're type A, or if does that mean you're a perfectionist? Yes and no. It could mean that you are a perfectionist and those things, or it can just mean that you're a perfectionist. So for me, and my definition and Perfectaholic's definition of perfectionism is being unwilling or unable to consider an alternative, living your life based on fear. So, like you talked about, sort of this transition, and all of the uncertainties. It's like sometimes you'll just put your life on hold, or you'll not make progress, or you'll be afraid to sort of put yourself out there out of fear of what others might think.
Girl,
Because
I'm raising my hand. Like
perfectionism,
for anybody who
yeah.
can't see right now, I'm raising my hand. That is me right now in this very moment.
Perfectionism is to me sometimes a coping mechanism, and a way to control things,
Mm,
because as much as you get older you realize how much you cannot control, you know and so perfectionism at times can be a safety net. I'm here, I'm in this box, I can control this, I can control what I release, I can control my environment, I can control how people react to me, I can control what I say, or what I release, or what I post online, or what it's a control. I can control if they like me or if they don't like me, or if they, it's a control thing, because you want to be enough, you want to be liked, you want to be loved. So you might be a people pleaser, because you're constantly saying yes to people and things that you don't really want to say yes to, because you're afraid that, again, fear that they won't like you or won't love you or won't appreciate you if you say no. You have that fear of maybe stepping into a new chapter of your life because, again, you're afraid of what people might say, or you're not enough, or she's not doing enough, or the shoulds. That
mm.
was a big part for me. I should be married, I should be making this much money, I should have had a baby by now, I should be living in this type of house, driving this type of car. Those will drive you crazy, and they will
So
have
much
you.
pressure. So
Yes,
much pressure.
they will have you sitting on the sidelines looking at those empty cups, those spilled
Oh,
cups, instead of just accepting, you know what? I can, start this new business and not be 100% sure exactly how it's going to go. Or, I can, start this new job and, I'm not sure that my parents will approve of it. Or, my sister asked me for something, and you know what? I'm going to say no, and that's okay. So perfectionism is sort of leaving yourself in that controlled environment, that controlled box, and not considering any other options, because a lot of times it's out of fear and out of um, feeling as though you, like you said, are not enough in
Yeah.
whatever sort of way that works for you. And if you, for example, are, you know, your biggest sort of perfectionism thing that you focus on is work related. For someone else, it could be relationships. For someone else, it could be their children. For someone else, it could be, so it's not black and white. I think at the end of the day, sort of going from being a perfectionist to being a recovering perfectionist is A, giving yourself grace, and B, giving yourself permission to just consider something else. Because a lot of times, like I said, you have this list, and that's it. It is what it is. There are no, nope, that's it. It has to be this way. It's like perfectionism is like, wanting a specific color dress. You want a blue dress. Oh, you want a royal blue, not like a light blue. You want a royal blue. But then perfectionism is like, no, I want a specific RGB color code. And I'm not going to accept anything other than that. That is perfectionism. It's like, can it just be royal blue? No, it has to be like,
Give me the hex number. Give me the exact color blue I want.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with wanting and having standards and being like, this is the color blue that I want, that I prefer. But if something is close to it or almost like it, or if you're going to stop progress on something because you can't find that exact color, that is perfectionism. At some point you just sort of have to let go and trust the universe and trust that, like, you know what? I'm still going to be okay going to whatever this event is, and I'm going to have my royal blue dress. It's not the exact color that I saw in this magazine that I want this, but I'll be fine.
Yeah, no, exactly. I feel like the universe is talking to me right now by making me talk to you. Because I mean, I was talking to my therapist the other day, and I was like, there's so much pressure that nobody is putting on me, but I am putting on myself to do all of A through Z in a certain amount of time, in a certain way, and I won't be happy or release it or do whatever until I feel like it is its absolute best, which, yes, it's good to a certain degree because you're together, right? You don't want to, kind of slap everything together, especially if it's something that you're, passionate about and whatnot. But there is a certain level of like, okay, it's time to let it go. Like, you're sabotage. Like, I feel like perfectionism can almost lead into, self-sabotaging in a way.
Absolutely. If you are a perfectionist and if you are sort of dealing with perfectionism in the way that you just described, what you're essentially doing to yourself is you are telling yourself that you are not enough. You're bullying yourself. Ooh. You're essentially saying to yourself, you need to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, all of it in the next 30 days, in the next 60 days. Sometimes it's not just what you want to accomplish, but it's in the time period that you want to accomplish. You put these unrealistic expectations on yourself, these unrealistic timelines. And then if it doesn't happen, then you get disappointed. Then it just starts a continuous cycle. And if you're constantly saying, I have to have A, B, C, D, E by this time, and it has to look exactly like this, you realize that you're going to be doing that for the rest of your life. You're essentially saying to yourself, I am never going to be satisfied with my life. I'm never going to be satisfied with myself. I'm always going to find something wrong. I'm always going to find something to fix. I'm always going to find, that's exhausting. Take it from me.
I'm tired now.
I'm sure you are, because it is exhausting. Part of sort of leaning more into the recovery side of perfection as opposed to just being a straight perfectionist is letting go and saying it's okay. So let's just say you have a list of 10 things that you want to do by a certain age. Well, why don't you extend that age a little bit? Or why don't you maybe consider some alternatives? There's nothing wrong with having a list. There's nothing wrong with wanting certain things. There's nothing wrong with being particular. But it's the pressure that you put on yourself. A, I think a lot of times it's the timelines, but also B, are you a failure if you don't get there?
Mm.
Because that's the other part. It's not just I have this list that I want to do this by a certain date, but if I don't get there, am I okay with it? Am I okay with myself? Have I failed myself? Have I failed my parents? Have I, because it's a shift. It's like, okay, I'll use myself as an example. I wanted to be married by the time I was 30. I wasn't.
Mhm. Surprise, it didn't happen.
Still not married. Yes. But when I got to 30 and I wasn't married, I felt like I had failed. I felt like I had failed personally. I felt like I had failed my family. I felt like I had failed sort of my peer group. I felt like I was sort of like not picked for the team. I wasn't like, you watch these movies and you have these kids and people are getting picked for dodgeball and you're like the last kid, you're like, hey, I'm over here,
Hey, I'm way back here with my hand waving.
right. Right. And so that's how I felt. And that was part of my perfectionism. The only way for me not to fail was for me to be married by the time I was 30. Now, rewind to let's say 25 and I had put this on my list. Had I gotten to 30 and not been married, I still could have had a different perspective. I could have been like, okay, well, it didn't happen, but I still have a good life. I've still dated some good men. Thank God I did not marry that man that I was dating when I was 28. I mean, there are so many alternatives, but perfectionism is like yes or no, white or black. Check. I either checked it or I didn't check it. Whereas like recovering perfectionist is like, okay, I want to be married by the time I'm 30. There's nothing wrong with that. You're allowed to have that wish. You're allowed to have that goal. But if you don't meet it, then you've got to say, okay, I'm okay. I'm still having a good life. I'm still happy. I'm healthy. I'm gorgeous. I'm gonna meet him or her or whatever one day. It's having a different consideration of an outcome and not just checking it off being the only outcome. And sometimes that's what perfectionists do. It's like I have to have this and it has to be this way, and if it's not, there's no alternative to it. You stay in that box. There's no wiggle room. So of course, if you don't meet it, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to feel like a failure. Again, you're bullying yourself. You're telling yourself that you are not enough, and the world will beat you up. Why beat your own self up?
Yeah. Why are you going to do that to yourself?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So we're speaking some for real truths right now. And I think, we've identified what perfectionism is.
Yes.
And how it can manifest itself, maybe the repercussions that come from it as well. How do I stop this then? What are some tips?
So I will say the first thing that I recommend, Perfectaholic recommends, is to what we say break up with perfection. And in this case, we see it as a relationship, like a romantic relationship. It's a relationship that you've had with perfection for probably most of your life. And perfectionism has probably given you some good things, So for me, I'm very particular about certain things. So, I have a business where I'm an event planner and it works well for me because I dot I's and I cross T's and things are on time and it works very well for me. But there are other aspects of my life where perfectionism has really caused me to miss a decade of my life. So we say, write a breakup letter to perfection. Like you would write a breakup letter to someone you dated, it was great. We've been dating for, so and so years. And, we had such good times and you taught me this and you taught me that. But at the end of the day, you're toxic. At the end of the day, you're causing me to miss out on my life. At the end of the day, you've got me stuck in a box. And so I'm going to let you go. I appreciate all that you've taught me, all that you've, learned, that I've learned from you. But, I want a different life. Yeah. I'm going to go a different way. And so we have a guide on our website onto how to write a breakup letter to perfection. So that would be the first step. But one of the other things, and I use this all the time because it's almost like I was born a perfectionist. I've always been particular. I've always liked things in a little box. I've always So that's not going away. I just have to find a way for perfection not to run my life. I have to find a way to get out of that box when I'm in that box. So I'll use the marriage as an example. And one of the things we have on our website, we call it this what if, even if mindset shift. What if I'm not married by the time I'm 30? I will feel like a failure. My friends will, think less of me.
Mhm.
I won't be part of the club, right? That's what if.
Yeah.
Then you shift that mindset shift to even if. Even if I'm not married by the time I'm 30. So it's the same exact thing, but instead of what if, it's even if. I
Mhm.
still have a good life. I've gotten to know myself a lot better than some of my friends who got married early. I have the pleasure of eating cereal for dinner because I don't have to worry about somebody else and what they want to eat. I'm using that as an example, but it's essentially shifting, which is giving you more options than just that checkbox.
Mm.
What if only gives you, it has to be this and it has to be that by this time. I have to just check it off. Even if says, well, okay, I'd like this to happen, but if it doesn't, there's still some, there's still good out there. I'm still having a good life. There's still a positive. There's still a silver lining. There's still some wins I can get from this because perfectionism keeps you in what if. And so, we have a worksheet and example of like how to shift your mind from what if to even if. And that's a
Mhm.
huge thing because
Yeah.
like I said, I still do it to this day. I still because it's
It's
not
ingrained in
a
you. It's who
it
you are as a
is.
person. It's
It
part of it.
is. It
And I
is.
think it's like we're not trying to tell people like to get rid of this. Like it's not all or nothing. Again, it's like that's that perfectionism talking. It's not all or nothing, but it's you can use your perfectionism to your advantage, but you
Yes.
also have to be able to recognize when it is causing a hindrance on your life and the way that you live it and all of the things that you want to do. So the
Absolutely.
either or black and white have not have mindset that I think maybe some people are having. You're like, oh, I got to get rid of this perfectionism. Like I have to wipe it out. Chances are that's not going to happen because you're a perfectionist by nature, much like myself and much like you, Crystal. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, how do I use this to my advantage and then get it out of the way when it needs to leave?
Yeah. And then the other thing, two other things I would say. One is, like you said, you're naturally a perfectionist. Don't beat yourself up about that. Just don't let it manage your life. So, one of the things that I do is I find outlets for my perfectionism. For example, I wash my own car. I
Mm-hmm.
go to a car wash where I scrub the outside of my car with like this little broom brush. Then I go through this automatic, car
Yeah.
wash. And then I go and I vacuum my own car. I wipe it down. I clean the windows because I can nitpick, get all the little crumbs out because it's like my little perfectionism side. I'm wiping down. I'm looking for any spots. I mean, I need an outlet for that because it's part of who I am. Because it just sort of feeds that beast per se, you know?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, a lot of times with perfectionism, we're just focused on the end, right? We're focused on did you check it off? Did you
Yep.
get married by this date? But what about all the in between? The other things we advocate for are sort of what we call these like little wins. Like I randomly won $50 in a scratch off ticket. Yes,
Yes.
now I have not quite won $1 million, which is still on my list, but I won $50 in a scratch off ticket. Or someone randomly sent me a note to say thank you. Or I randomly like got to an appointment on time when I was running late. Those are all like little things. It's gratitude, but it's the little things. Sometimes we're always looking for this big, explosion type of experience. No, just start to appreciate the little things, start to appreciate those random things. And then also start to, again, I think it's a lot of time timelines. If you want something and you naturally will say, I want this in a year, well, then give yourself a year and a half, give yourself
Mhm.
2 years, give yourself, a little bit more time because perfectionism, a lot of times it's like, I'm going to run a marathon 2 weeks from now. Haven't been running in years. That's unrealistic, but that's how our minds think. Our minds are like, pew, we're just gonna
Yes.
go for it. We're just gonna, why don't you just like commit to, I'm gonna, get up and walk every day for the next 2 weeks. I'm gonna go to the gym for, instead of just putting this huge amount of pressure on yourself to achieve this explosion type, thing. And then you don't do it, and then you're disappointed,
Yeah,
so maybe set smaller goals, be grateful for some of those smaller things, find a
definitely.
way to use your perfectionism in good ways,
Mhm,
dot those
mhm.
i's and cross those t's in things that are healthy. you
Oh my
know
gosh. No, I'm the same way. Like I am and this is my perfectionism. I have been notorious for doing the everything all at once.
Mm,
Like I'll be like, okay, I need to do this, and this, and this. All in today. Like I'll set look because I am a goal person. I
mm,
love goals. I love setting them. I like reaching them. I like, I'm a goal driven person, and sometimes to my detriment
yeah.
and to my own mental health, because I'll be setting too many goals and some of them are unrealistic. But then this is what ends up happening, and what I've noticed with myself is I kind of get into this game with myself where it's like I set a goal, right? I'm like, all right, let's see if we can do this. And then we do it, and then we do it in the time allotted. And I was like, all right, can we do it in half the time? And then you
Oh,
start like playing this game with yourself, and you were just like causing so much pressure and stress. I was like, this is not healthy. I should not
yeah.
be doing this with myself. Because I start making it into a game, and I start like living all what ify and that kind of stuff. So don't do that. Definitely don't do that. I'm telling you right now, if you're a goal person, don't do it.
Well,
But
I want to challenge you to something
yeah.
because, like you said, that's something that you naturally do. Why don't you flip that? And it's like, instead of like it being goal related, why don't it be gratitude related? Like
Mm.
every day I'm going to think of 2 things to be grateful for. Ooh, I did it. Ooh, tomorrow I'm going to think of 3 things. Ooh, wait a minute. Did I? Yes, I did. You know what? In a week, I'm going to think of. So sometimes it's also, like I said, not keeping yourself in that box, thinking of alternatives, being creative and finding ways that things that are just sort of natural to you, like
Ooh, that
tweak
it
them,
shifts. Just
yeah,
shift it.
shift them. Yeah, because if you're naturally going to do it anyway, then you're sort of setting yourself up to fail to not do it because you're like, I'm
Yeah.
going to do this. I like doing this. This gets me going. Like I love writing a list and checking it off. I literally
Mhm.
sometimes I will sometimes I will write things that I've already done just to check
Just
them
so that
off.
I can check them.
I'm like, I already did this, but I'm going to write it down so I can check it off. So that's something that really gets me going. And so I just tweak it for myself, So it's like, I'm going to do it anyway because it gives me
Mm.
that sort of feel good, emotion
Yeah.
in my brain. It's like, ooh,
That's just how you operate.
exactly. So why not use it to your advantage as opposed to using it for something that is going to beat yourself up or make you feel bad or, just find a way to use it in a healthy way, not an unhealthy way,
Yes.
you know? And then on the flip side though, with your list, don't put everything on a daily list. Put it on a weekly list. And then can you outsource things? One of the other things with perfectionism that we didn't talk about is sometimes it's like you don't trust other people to do things. You're like,
Mm.
oh, no, 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 no. I'm the only one who can do this because I like it a certain way. And again, staying in that box, wanting to control. Someone else may not do, the email list or, the clean your house exactly the way that you would like it to be done, but it's still done. The house is still clean. The email list is still out. The whatever the task is still done. It's not exactly the way you would do it, but that's okay because then that frees you up, your mind, your body, your spirit to do other things. Sometimes it's like, again, getting out of that box, letting go of control. It's okay to let someone else do it. It's okay to let someone else help me. I know a lot of moms suffer from this. I'm not a mom. I'm a mom to a dog, but not a human. But I know a lot of moms who sort of suffer from this. I've got to be this perfect mom. My kids have
Mm.
got to be this, and they've got to be in all these activities, and I've got to, cook every night, and that's exhausting,
Yeah.
especially if you're a working mom, and sometimes it's okay to go through the drive-through, or let someone else, like pick up your kids from school so you can have a little downtime, or, so again, getting out of that box,
Mm-hmm.
and accepting an alternative, which in this case is sort of accepting help or letting someone else do something. Or I'm sure we all know people that we work with who are perfectionists who won't let anyone else touch this particular
Drives me
something.
crazy.
Yes, because they don't trust that this other person can do it the way that they do it. But what they don't realize is that the way that this other person does it might be a better way. And even if
Mm-hmm.
it's not, it's still okay because it
You
doesn't
still
have
get the
to
end
be perfect.
result.
Yeah, done is done,
Yeah.
done
So
is done.
my question to you is, I feel like we have opened up, a little bit of Pandora's box and talking about all the ways that perfectionism, manifests in our lives, and realizing that perfectionism really is a blanket and there's so much more under it. So I know that you have sheets and workshops, and this is your area of expertise. So where can people go to dive a little bit more into this, and to maybe ask you some questions or get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is perfectaholic.com, and that's perfect, the letter A, and then holic.com. And then on social media, we're at a perfectaholic. And so you can find lots of resources on our website. We have t-shirts like the one I'm wearing that says Recovering Perfectionist. We have some that say Perfectionist for Basic Bitches. We have Fuck Perfection. We also have these digital guides, like I mentioned, how to break up with perfection, how to write a breakup letter with to perfection, a sort of a cheat sheet for those little wins. We have 101 little wins that'll just kind of get you started, that'll sort of get you in that mode of gratitude. And then my favorite, that what if to even if mindset shift. And those are
Which
like
I think
digital
is
downloads.
huge. I
It
think
is
that is
literally,
game
it
changing right
saves
there.
my life on a regular basis. Yes. And then I am personally at Hey Crystal Love, just on Instagram. I do have a Twitter, but I never tweet.
You're like, I'm there, but we don't do anything.
I think my bio says my Twitter fingers are like, tired or busy, but
They're
I've
on
never
ice.
been able to, I've never been able to really get into tweeting. Although I do read tweets and, I go on Twitter, but I'm mostly on Instagram.
Awesome.
And, I would say lastly, just, to your audience, I appreciate the opportunity to come on again. We're creating a movement, we are creating a shift in mindset. We are creating, by you wearing a shirt or expressing to your friends, your family, your social media friends, that you're kind of sort of letting go of perfection, breaking up with perfection, that you're going to be more authentic. The world needs more of that, So it's not just about this business. It's about sort of us as women, young girls that are growing up to sort of have this, idea from the media and social media that they sort of have to be these perfect little beings, and they don't, because that's not life. And so I would just encourage people to not bully yourself, to be kinder to yourself and to give yourself more options than just sort of checking off that box.
Yes. Oh, love it. Love everything about it. Slay Nation, if you do anything, I'm going to definitely say go visit, her website, and try that mindset, the what if, even if mindset shift, because I think even in just us talking about it, it's a great way to kind of combat the negative side of perfectionism. Again, it's not an all or nothing mindset we're doing with this perfectionism, but just a shift and learning yourself, becoming self-aware enough to use your perfectionism to your advantage. And then, get rid of it when it's not needed. All right. Thank you so much, Crystal. I really, really appreciate you coming on and talking with me. And Slay Nation, until next time, we will catch you later.